want you guys to see this, and basically it's worth noting. It shows that this whole thing with Nagoya, I think is worth pointing out. So this is a nice little background intro about Nagoya, which it says a global industry powerhouse. And if anything, how do we tie this into the likes of JASMY, right? Well, I would say through the automotive industry, autonomous vehicles and whatnot. That should be your key takeaway here in a bit. Please smash that like. Let's see how we tie this all in together. Here we go.
IoT, robotics, 5G, AI. Through many kinds of revolutionary technology, the world is changing at an unprecedented speed. However, no matter how much society changes, what continues to support cutting-edge technology is the spirit of industry. Nagoya is located near the center of Japan and is known as an industrial hub for its automobile, aerospace, machine tool, electronic component, and new materials manufacturing facilities. The biggest reason that Nagoya has become such a hub is the passion for industry that has had roots in the region since long ago. Since ancient times, Nagoya was home to many industries, including cotton, firearms, ceramics, and lumber, using materials transported through its extensive canal system. These would later contribute to the development of textile manufacturing, clock production, sanitary ceramics, and architectural technologies. These techniques continue to advance today, in turn contributing to the railway, aerospace, and automotive industry's great strides. Nagoya is now renowned as a global industrial powerhouse, with the automotive industry and many other manufacturing industries clustered within a 100-kilometer radius. Even within the GDP ranking of world nations, it ranks at 20th globally, on par in GDP with Poland and Switzerland, and accounting for an entire % of the world's total GDP. Transportation. Machinery and robotics. Ceramics. Materials. Electronics. As you can see, many of the world's leading companies are based here. Nagoya is centrally located, and the Maglev Shinkansen, due to begin operation in 2027, will make it possible to travel between Nagoya and Tokyo in just 40 minutes. Nagoya is home to many outstanding universities and research institutes, drawing experts in their fields from all over the world. Dr. Jacob Lambert, who earned his PhD at Nagoya University, is just one of the researchers who has come to call Nagoya home.
Yeah, Centrair is super convenient. There's many direct flights to international cities, and then once you get here, it's really easy to get to downtown Nagoya. So there's a direct train line, and also you can take the highway to go back. It's really convenient. Nagoya is the birthplace of the Toyota company, and they have an amazing museum that you can come by and see if you're interested at all in old cars and machinery and even future cars. I really recommend coming here. It's an amazing place. You can see a lot of their history, and all have amazing machinery. Yeah, I really like this abura soba. It's kind of like ramen, but without soup. So it's perfect for summer. It's not too hot. Delicious. Welcome to Nagoya University. Let's take a look around. This is the NIC, the National Innovation Complex. The NIC is kind of a hub where academic researchers meet industry leaders. So both startup companies who develop emerging technologies and industry leaders who have like the know-how to push these technologies into society and create a better future. So in Nagoya University, there's quite a few multidisciplinary labs like this one. So my research in autonomous driving perception is made possible by all the different people who work here. So from the vehicle engineers to electrical engineers who work here, the computer vision and machine learning scientists who all come together in these kind of labs to put together these great big research projects where emerging technology comes from. So this place is also good for interfacing between academia and industry. So we're lucky to have support from many companies who give us both equipment, but also knowledge on how to best introduce these technologies into society, and that really pushes our research into the right direction so we can have a good impact.
We hope to see you in Nagoya someday soon.
All right, that was cool, and glad to obviously share that with you guys. Now, some of you guys may think, well, how does that have anything to do with JASMY? How do we tie that in? And great question, right? We'll get into it. You know how I do things. Hopefully by this point of your, I don't know, journey with myself and other people, they're part of a community, right? So I want to get into a little bit more what we have, and what you're going to see here is, I don't know, may raise some eyebrows to say the least. So it's this right here. It's the 13th International Conference on the Internet of Things. I'm just going to go ahead and jump into it and show it to you. Let's just present this in a way you can see it. All right. So Mina Lagwar basically drew my attention to this. And as you know, when it comes to JASMY, they're all obviously all about the Internet of Things, IoT and so on. But, you know, JASMY does attend quite a few blockchain conferences and so on. IVS Crypto 2023, a few others, right? And, of course, IVS Crypto 2023. Why do I always mention that? Well, you know, Diamond sponsor was Ripple, right? So this 13th International Conference on the Internet of Things is going to happen on November 7th through the 10th. And where's it going to be? Boom. Nagoya University, Japan. Oh boy. Oh boy. In my opinion, yes. All those other conferences, not bad, right? Especially if you have one as a diamond sponsor for Ripple. But this might very well be the Super Bowl for JASMY, if you get what I'm saying, when it comes to the conference of the Internet of Things. They really need to bring it. Well, Max, you know, Hara doesn't necessarily bring it when it comes to AMAs. Hey, I get that. But want to know something? Maybe he's not able to bring it because of the language barrier. Whereas this is Japan. So it's going to be his native tongue. So, yeah, I am rooting for the man to do well. So, Hara, even though I doubt you probably were going to watch this video, no offense, I'm rooting for you, my friend. And I want to basically say to you, let's go, right? So, with that said, let's jump into why this is significant and why you should pay attention to this. So number one, getting more into this, you have this whole thing where they're going to bring together, and I know it's kind of hard to read, and I try to expand it, but it just looks too funky on the screen. It's kind of blurry for you anyway. But they're going to bring together academia, obviously, industry, society, and governmental agencies due to the innovative advances, connected devices, and systems of what they bring to society. So when we talk about the whole thing of, you know, Society 5.0, which we talk about all the time, do we not? Maybe you're getting tired of hearing about it. This is the mother lode, right? This is the cream of the crop. You rise to the top. You get into IoT because IoT is not a cop or something. Anyway, why am I rhyming? I don't know. But the key thing is this, right? They got to bring it, right? To me, this is the Super Bowl of the whole industry standard. So hopefully they do bring it, and especially understand the government's going to be there. All the big players are going to be there. And as the saying goes, birds of the feather flock together. I mean, I'm not going to be like oblivious and think, oh, yeah, none of these guys are going to talk. They're going to talk, right? And if anything, maybe you start seeing some things of which just like, I don't know, deals done and we don't hear about it till later. I mean, those are all possibilities. Maybe some people don't like me mentioning that. They're like, well, that's speculative. I just want the juicy news. Hey, well, there's other guys that will provide you that news. I want to tie this all in together, and I'm glad that Men and Logwar brought this to my attention because, for one, just like this video that we played, this is the international conference of just that, the Internet of Things. So it's not like this is just, this is, Japan's conference on Internet of Things. No, international conference of the Internet of Things. It is the premier gathering for visionary and groundbreaking research in IoT and closely related fields. It connects, listen to this, guys, world-class researchers. Maybe I should say it, right? Anyway, no kidding. Stop it, Max. Don't do that. You're supposed to be humble. I know. All right. But research with leading industry experts to steer innovation in multiple IoT verticals, smart industry, smart cities, hence why we was talking about Society 5.0, smart health, smart environment, right? Since its start back in 2008, the conference has been backed by strong support from leading academic institutions as well as industry. But JASMY scam, there cannot be any type of person like this from academic institution as well as industry. JASMY scam. Well, guess what? Hate to burst your bubble, my friend, that is saying that this is ridiculous, because want to know something? This is something that they're going to take pride and joy, because, again, it's something about when you have the home court advantage, you are going to bring it, okay? JASMY has to bring it, okay? So I'm rooting for them to bring it. They are, of course, pleased to announce that the 13th International Conference of the Internet of Things will be held, like I mentioned, in November on those specific dates. I believe it's 3 days, right? So it's going to be at this place called Norori Conference Hall in Nagoya University, right? Did we see a special appearance from, Kumataki Ando? I don't know. It's possible. You got to think about it. If it's held at a university and he heads up, basically Nagano, right? Yeah, Nagano. You never know. It's a possibility. That'd be really cool. Not gonna say it's gonna happen, right? But here's the thing. All right. We were talking about earlier, who are some of the big industries that are investing in some of this stuff, right? And that's obviously worth pointing out. Now, what I want to get into is a little bit of my notes, I guess you could say, in that regard. So I'm going to pull this up for just a moment. And basically speaking, Minamagwar, he did a really good job with all this. And, basically speaking, like, he just really took I guess you could say, like a deep dive into this. So he deserves a lot of credit. Give him a follow if you haven't done so already. You can be followed at MENELAGUAR. But he goes into, just a lot of information in regards to this. So we were talking about Nagoya, okay? In his notes, he states to me that there are two very important R&D projects. Were you aware of it? Probably not. That are in work. For one, it's called Sakura Project. Now, this project is an ambitious renewable energy initiative aimed at integrating, various clean energy sources like solar and wind into the existing grid. Companies like Chibu Electric are involved. And of course, it aligns with, the broader ESG goals. Remember how we talked about ESG the other day? Yeah, absolutely, right? So that's obviously a big deal. Again, this is like a part two, if you will. Now, again, that was Nagoya, and I wanted to kind of bring you back to the whole thing about it and so on. So we play that video. I'm glad to share that with you and so on. And basically speaking, we talked about the 13th International Conference on the Internet of Things. Both him and I, Menalagor, agree that JASMY, it can absolutely kill it here, right? That's the bottom line. And then also getting into this, you got to keep in mind there's some big things going on here. A lot of, big fishes, if you will. Investing in Japan, green tech, decarbonization. I mean, what's one of the key highlights that we're talking about tonight? We talked about Hedera earlier, green tech. Now we're talking about JASMY again, but a little bit more of that green tech. And, this whole thing of this decarbonization initiative and these technologies, they're tied into it. So we're going to get into this, and basically, I'm going to share, I guess you could say, a little bit more of what we have. In the notes, it also talks about, for instance, because we were talking about, was it Vanguard the other day? So yesterday, when we tied in the whole thing of Vanguard, you also got to keep in mind BlackRock had partnered, listen to this, guys, this is more of this institutional information, partnered with Temasek, okay? And they are going to establish decarbonization partners. And I'm going to take you to the Mizuho group just to kind of show you that reference, in regards to BlackRock. Give me just a second to pull that up. And yeah, here it is. Let's show you this. So this is the site that I'm referencing. And, what was one of the things that, BlackRock mentioned with Aladdin, or, Vanguard, for instance, what we shared the other day with Clarity, was it Clarity AI or whatever it's called? So for one, BlackRock is Aladdin. Vanguard is Clarity. Crazy name, right? When we talk about regulatory clarity. Well, what about Japan? Right, we'll enter in Mizuho Group, and the other ones talked about leveraging, right, all this in regards to the technologies. Well, again, Japan, so leveraging their deep expertise and seamless financial solutions. Mizuho Financial Group is one of the largest, listen to this, guys, financial institutions in the world, offering financial and strategic services through a group of companies which include Mizuho Bank and Mizuho Securities. So to a sense, it's like, your Blackguard, your Vanguard, your State Street, your Grayscale of Japan. Okay, so again, the home court advantage here. Like, could this be one of the industry players or institutions that show up to this? Yeah, I definitely think so. And I'm glad that, Menalagor brought this to our attention. So getting more into what we have on the outline, you got to keep in mind that, there's some things to get into. And basically, I think I have a PDF, if I'm not mistaken, that shows some key highlights here. Let me just see if I can pull this up. Yeah, I do believe I have that. So, yeah, okay, I see what he's talking about. So I don't have the PDF. I thought I did, but nonetheless, I show you the reference from the MizuhoGroup.com page. But BlackRock, of course, teamed up or partnered with Temasek to establish decarbonization partners. I already mentioned that, excuse me. But it focuses on investments that advance decarbonization solutions. And they, all right, if you're still on board with me, they have committed $600 million to invest, and that's dollars, that's not yen, that's dollars, to invest into companies that have proven technologies that will reduce and potentially eliminate carbon emissions. Now, does that not get your attention? Hopefully it does. The partnership will seek to make investments in early stage growth companies. Think about this, because JASMY is still an early stage growth company. This should be the juicy stuff that you're waiting for, all right? The partnership will seek to make investments in early stage growth companies targeting proven next generation renewable and mobility technology, including, I know if you're new, you've never seen this, you're like, what the heck? What, hey, it's going to happen. Including next generation, early stage growth companies, sorry about that, targeting proven next generation renewable and mobility technology. Again, IoT, right? JASMY's all about that. Mobility technology, including emerging fuel sources, grid solutions, battery storage. Remember we talked about the whole thing with the grid solution a while back? You guys remember that deep dive we talked about that? Why that was so significant? Again, understand the big industry players in the institutions and how it's all tied in. Can you imagine having a hub, if you will, or a conference? I guess you could say a hub where they're all meeting together, right? And talking about all this and saying, who are some of the rising stars, if you will? Again, think outside the box. So this is going to include battery storage, electric autonomous vehicles, and we're going to get into that here in a bit, as well as building and manufacturing sectors to drive decarbonization, resources, efficiencies, and material and process innovation. Now, let's jump into what is mentioned here in regards to, even Wikipedia, basically, right? Because, some of you guys obviously are wondering about that. So for one, I want to share this. I think it is from Wikipedia. Yeah, it is from Wikipedia. And it goes on to mention some key things here. I'm just trying to load this up. And that is in regards to not just Mizuho Financial Group, but how they're part of this thing called Fuyo Group. All right. Now, let's jump into that. I'll pull that screen up for you guys. Here it is. And on this reference, you do see here that you have Fuyo Group. And Fuyo Group basically is a Japanese, excuse me. All right. Is a Japanese Keiretsu. Like, you may be wondering, what the heck is that? So Keiretsu is a set of companies with interlocking business relationships and shareholdings that have dominated the Japanese economy since the second half of the 20th century. In the legal sense, it's a type of informal business group that is loosely, organized alliance with the social world, and there's more to it. But anyway, they descended from the Yasuda Zaibatsu. I could get more into all this stuff. Asano, all this stuff, right? I guess it's very, very important in regards to Japanese honor. This should be your takeaway. They're established. They've been around a long time. But anyway, they're major businesses that are grouped in Japan up to, I guess dating back to World War II. Crazy stuff. But in 1948, Yasuda was dismantled with its key financial arm, Yasuda Bank, becoming Fuji Bank. So what is that all about? Well, getting more into this and so on, it states that Fuji Bank did this parallel development with DKB Group. Fuji Bank orchestrated the merger of Marubeni in 1955. I mean, there's a lot of history behind this, right? But again, they've been around a long time, and they're a big name, to say the least, right? That's, I guess you could say, should be your takeaway. Now, according to the notes from Menalagwar, in regards to that merger, the Fuyo Group merged with Daiichi Kanyo Bank and Industrial Bank of Japan in 2000 to form, listen to this, Mizuho Financial Group. Now, pay attention to this. Following the merger, the Fuyo Group became centered on Marubeni, Meiji, Yasuda Life Insurance, and Yasuda Fire and Marine Insurance, which is now known as Sompo Japan. Marubeni is also on Warren Buffett's, like they're part of his table of chairman, like sitting on the board, if you will. Okay, so you may be wondering, like, why tie this in, right? You're going to want to pay attention to this. So I'm going to stop the screen on this. I'm going to let it speak for itself. And if anything, I'm going to take you right to it just in a second. So basically speaking, this is, I don't know, this is like, I guess you could say it's like 18 and a half minutes long. It talks about Japanese stocks, but I'm going to shut it off after the Warren Buffett interview. But yeah, let's let this speak for itself. It basically mentions 5 months ago, the real reason Warren Buffett is buying in, investing into Japan. I want you to hear this. We talked about, tying all this in together. Yes, Warren Buffett is not big on crypto. Like, he doesn't like Bitcoin and all that. But he's not, just like Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan, he doesn't even realize, maybe he does, that what he's invested is actually tied into crypto through what? Blockchain, distributed ledger technologies, right? That's the key thing, right? Realizing the bigger picture of things. So just because he's against it, it's like almost unavoidable at this point, right? I'm going to play this for you. We're going to play, like I said, about roughly 10 minutes. So this is good stuff. I'm serious. Listen to this. Think outside the box. And when you do, man, why aren't you stacking JASMY? Not financial advice, but this is good. Let's go ahead and play this. Please smash a like. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Hold on a second. I don't have a shirt. My bad. Let me get a shirt for you guys. That would have been bad.
Yesterday, Warren Buffett did an interview on CNBC and discussed his recent investments in 5 Japanese companies. In the interview, he also discussed how he thinks about investing in general and why he thought these Japanese companies in specific were such attractive investments. We're going to watch this entire clip, then go through the key points so you can better understand Warren Buffett's investment process and become a better investor yourself. So with that being said, let's hop over to YouTube and let's just start this interview. And I will be pausing here and there to provide some additional insight. So let's
why did this trip happen, and why did those investments happen to begin with?
Well, the investments began maybe close to 4 years ago, and I was looking at company after company, as I'll do every day, and I just thought these were big companies. They were companies that I generally understood what they did. Somewhat similar to Berkshire in that they owned lots of different interests, and they were selling at what I thought was a ridiculous price, particularly the price compared to the interest rates prevailing at that time.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the video right there really quickly because so far Warren Buffett has already said that these 5 Japanese companies that he purchased were companies that he understood, so they were within his circle of competence. He thought that they were selling for attractive prices. He basically thinks that they are like Japanese Berkshire Hathaway. So for those of you who do not know, these 5 Japanese companies are, they essentially are conglomerates. They own a bunch of different other companies in Japan. So that's why he's saying that he understood them and they were a lot like Berkshire Hathaway, just over in Japan. Then once again, he does say that he thought that they were selling for attractive prices relative to what interest rates were at the time. And he's going to elaborate on that a little bit more here.
And so I started buying all 5 of the 5 largest trading companies, and by my 90th birthday, August 30th of 2000, whatever it was,
2020.
We had bought just somewhat over 5% of each company, and we were buying identical amounts. So we announced at that time that we bought this 5% interest in each of the 5. I wrote a letter to the CEOs of each of the companies saying the same thing, that we would never buy, Berkshire would never buy more than 9.9% without their consent. And that was my word. It was Berkshire Hathaway's word, and they all welcomed us in, and their results have exceeded our expectations since we purchased the group. I think their dividends on average have gone up 70% or something like that, and we now own 7.4% of each of the companies. And
okay, so just to pause quickly again, Warren Buffett basically says that they initially started buying these companies back in August of 2020. I don't know if you guys all remember when that news was circling around, but he did in fact buy these 5 companies all the way back in 2020. And basically he is saying that the investments in general have far exceeded his and Berkshire's expectations for what they thought would happen over the next just few years. He says in this interview that the dividends on average have already increased by 70% since he purchased them just a few years ago. So far, these investments have done incredibly well for Berkshire Hathaway and Warren Buffett, and now what they're doing is they're increasing their stake in these 5 Japanese companies. So they already had a pretty massive position, and now they're simply just adding to it because everything is going well. And again, the investments have exceeded what they were even expecting. So now let's continue on.
I just, Greg and I together, we wanted to come over and talk to them. And so we got on a NetJets plane and plug, and and flew over, and we have had a terrific time meeting each of the 5 sequentially over the last 2 days, and it's been fascinating. And we feel even better about what we couldn't feel better about the investment. And over that time, we've sold periodically yen-denominated bonds. So more or less, we don't do it precisely, but
Did you not catch that? I know you talking about, some guy from Brady Bunch in the comments, had the meats, right? And that's hilarious. But did you not catch that? Yen-denominated bonds? What have we been talking about for like the last few months? Come on, you guys, for real. Like, pay attention to this. This is good stuff. Let's jump back into this. If you have been paying attention to this, you understand where we're going with this. All right, let's play a little more.
we've insulated ourselves from exchange rate changes. So it's worked out very well so far, but we'll be in these stocks 10, 20 years. I mean, we weren't buying with the idea they go next week, next month, next year, but we have had revelations about each of the companies that, Greg and I are just fascinated by it. Right?
Was it worth the trip?
Oh,
absolutely. It's been a great trip. I mean, they've been exceptional in how they've communicated, both with their performance, but just their approach to business.
What did you learn since you've been here?
I think the thing that stands out very quickly to us is they came to the meetings wanting to build a relationship and strengthen it. So they understand we've invested in their companies, but from the very get-go, when we start the conversations with them, they come each with their own story, and it's around building trust in that relationship with them.
Meaning what? That there are other potential deals that you all could do together?
We've clearly made it, each time we've met with them, we said we very much like the core investment, but to the extent they can identify an incremental opportunity that we could do with any of the 5 companies, we would very much evaluate it quickly. And Warren highlighted the bigger the better, and that he'll answer the phone on the first ring.
And we'll never run out of money. I mean, they can call us anytime, and maybe what they have interests us, it may not, but they'll have an answer, bingo. And if we make it.
So this is very interesting. So not only did Berkshire Hathaway invest in these 5 massive Japanese companies, but it seems like these companies are also willing to form a long-term business relationship with Berkshire Hathaway. So basically, if any of these 5 companies come to Berkshire Hathaway and they're like, hey, we found this nice investment opportunity. Do you guys want to get out on this? Maybe supply some capital and we can acquire this business or expand this business or whatever. Then now they know that they can go to Berkshire Hathaway for additional capital to pursue any investment that they want. Now, why this is so interesting to me is because this is a lot like what Brookfield does. Brookfield Asset Management. They raise a ton of capital, literally tens of billions of dollars, well, actually like $100 billion last year. And they essentially invest all of that capital alongside their own capital. So they raise a bunch of money from their partners, other investors and whatever, and then they take that large basket of funds and then they start investing it alongside their own profits and capital. And now it looks like Berkshire, kind of similar names. Now it looks like Berkshire may be getting into some similar things where they may start investing their cash alongside other companies and other investors.
The deal, the money will be on the way, and we look forward to it. And I'm just astounded at how they're all different and they're all the same at the same time. I mean, we learned about 5 different individual companies, but it was not exactly what we expected. It was better than we expected in every respect.
People
learning about 5 individual companies better than what we expected. I mean, the examples are literally like all over the place when you look more into some of this stuff. So earlier, and we're going to get more into what this gentleman has to share, you have to keep in mind when you look into the broader sense of things, It's absolutely massive. I mean, for one, we gave the example about, um, for instance, tying in, what is this real quick? Let me pull this up. Yeah, Fuji Bank, right? Part of Fuji Group, the merge, seeing how this is tied into Murobini and, Japan, and how they sit at the table with Warren Buffett, basically. So yeah, you could say, you know, what's Buffett's connection to some of this stuff? Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's already there. I'm gonna play a little bit more of this. I wanted to point out some of these things. The key thing is institutions that have a ton of money being invested into some of this. Now, why do I put so much emphasis on this? And if anything, I got a little bit of criticism on it, and I'm okay with criticism. I mean, we have a difference of opinion. That's fine. The reason why I point this out is because if you understood and read the JASMY white paper, let's be honest, most people haven't. All right, so clearly a lot of people haven't. I don't mean that any disrespectfully, like no disrespect, but clearly it's obvious to me that a lot of people haven't, and even content creators, and I don't mean any disrespect. But the key thing is, in the tokenomics, it talks specifically about setting aside a portion of this in regards to who the institutional big players. And some people have stated that they don't like that. Why would you not like that? Why wouldn't you understand that if you have somebody like this, Warren Buffett, who's literally proven, here's the proof in the pudding, the real reason Buffett is buying into like Japan, right? I mean, yeah, let's talk about stocks here, but you got to keep in mind, he took a chance after it was presented about like these smaller startups and companies and so on. So again, the point is this. The point is tying all this in, understanding the bigger picture, and realizing that you want to know something? This conference coming up, some big wigs are going to be at this darn conference. And birds of the feather flock together. They talk, and they're going to talk about the end goal. This is literally, like I was saying, the Super Bowl of, for JASMY, basically. Like, they're going to have to bring it. I think they will bring it because they get to talk in their native tongue. And man, let's let it speak for itself. Let's play a little bit more about this. I know I'm a little bit excited about it, but I get it more into this. Mentalogware obviously sees the bigger picture. And anyway, we'll play just a little bit more. I think let's see here. I think there's like roughly 4 more minutes of this. This is a good interview. It will open your eyes. Here we go.
Look at this and say, okay, Warren Buffett is putting his stamp of approval on investing in Japan, basically. Is that an accurate read?
Well, it was an accurate read, but it was an accurate read a couple of years ago, too. I mean, I was confounded by the fact that we could buy into these companies and, in effect, have an earnings yield of maybe 14% or something like that, with dividends that would grow. They actually grew 70% during that time. And the people were investing their money at 0.25% or nothing. And that 0.25%, if they put it out for many years, wasn't going to grow. And the 14% was more likely to grow than not. And
okay, so that is pretty much the end of the interview and the end of the segment that I wanted to show you all.
All right. Actually, I'm going to rewind that for a second. Hold on a second. All right, my bad. I thought that part was over with. I want to finish this last part left. On the chopped up version, it'll be a little better. Hold on a second. All right. Yeah.
The 14% was more likely to grow than not. And
okay, so that is pretty much the end of the interview and the end of the segment that I wanted to show you all. So Warren Buffett, at the end of the interview, says that he has given his stamp of approval on investing in Japan over the past 2 years, really, and he's giving it again. I think that's why a lot of investors are really focusing on Japan now, and why a lot of these Japanese stocks have been rallying since Warren Buffett flew to Tokyo and increased his investments in these companies. What's also interesting is Japan, the overall market's price to earnings ratio, it is selling slightly below average. I actually have a screenshot here from JP Morgan. They put out their guide to the markets every once in a while.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why you skipped on that last part, but you get the point. And I'm going to bring up the next part we have. I know this seems like a real big deep dive, but it's good stuff. And here's the thing: institutions or Warren Buffett's, the big names. That's the bottom line. Like, you should understand the connections that we have here, and especially that one when it comes to Japan, literally like sitting at the table with, Berkshire Hathaway, basically, right? So getting into this, let me share this with you. Let me see what screen this is. Gosh, there's so much up right now. All right, let me pull up my notes real quick. So we talked about, Mara Benny, also sitting at the seat of, Berkshire Hathaway, or the Buffett table, if you will. We're going to introduce this next one, and it's called Temasek Holdings. You may be wondering, like, I don't know, maybe you don't quite follow this. Hopefully you do. But here's the thing, right? Temasek Holdings. They are, I guess, originally in Singapore, and they are basically a global investment company. They're owned by the government of Singapore. They're incorporated in 1974. They have a net portfolio of $287 billion as of 2023. They're huge, absolutely huge, right? So why bring this to your attention? So, they're not a traditional company, but listen to this: they're a sovereign wealth fund. They are government-owned holding company. They have investments in the financial services. Listen to this, guys. I'm just being honest. Telecommunications, media, transportation, real estate, energy sectors. So again, when we understand the end goal, right? Society 5.0, the smart cities, all this. Again, enter in Temasek, right? They got $184 billion in investments. Listen to this. More than a third, which are financial services industry. As we know, JASMY's branched into that. But back to Singapore, some of their holdings: Singapore Airlines, Neptune Orient Lines, PSA International, Shin Corporation. The company has offices in China, India, Vietnam, Brazil, Mexico. Temasek, like I mentioned, founded in 1974. What is it? The primary shareholder is Singapore's Ministry of Finance. All right, listen to this for a second. How does this come into fruition? Well, we're going to take it to the recent developments. Shout out to Darius Magruder, some of the other guys that tagged me, right? And basically speaking, it is SONY and Honda, a joint venture. You may be wondering, like, I finally got to tie this in. I know sometimes it takes me a long time to get to it. I want you to have an idea why all this is important, and especially the Warren Buffett part, right? So we're going to jump into this. I think I have the link in the right area. Let me double check. Yes, I do. Yep, here it is. This is good stuff. All right. So were you aware? I'm going to leave this on the screen. June 16, 2022, Tokyo, Japan, Sony Group Corporation and Honda Motor Corporation announced then that they have signed a joint venture agreement. Listen to this: to establish a new company to engage in the sale of high-value electric vehicles and provide services for mobility. That announcement back then is the furtherance and result of discussion of a strategic alliance in the mobility field between the parties, as announced in the joint press release entitled Sony and Honda Sign Memorandum of Understanding for Strategic Alliance in Mobility, when March 4th, 2022. Goes on to mention that together with Honda, I know it sounds nuts, cutting edge environmental and safety technologies, mobility development capabilities, vehicle body manufacturing technology, and after sales service management experience with Sony's expertise in the development and application of imaging. Gosh, guys, come on. Are we not paying attention to this stuff? Come on. I'm telling you flat out, like, sorry, this is the old teacher in me. Like, the guys in the back row, pay attention to this. Look at this: imaging, sensing, telecommunications, right? JASMY is all over this like a fat kid on cake. IoT, guys, come on. Network and entertainment technologies. Realize new generation of mobility and services for mobility. Remember, let me come back in the frame on this one. This is good stuff. This is really good stuff. Remember how we talked about everything with WITS? Remember how we talked about what's it called? Scheme. Remember how we talked about, for instance, what is it? Wars X. We talked about so many darn things. It's absolutely crazy tied into IoT, and you got to keep in mind like those services and the subsidiaries and the connection to Toyota, for instance. So all this is right up this alley. But the bottom line is, like it says, align with users and the environment to continue to evolve going forward. Sony and Honda plan to establish the new company, at least it did then in 2022, and begin, listen to this, the sale of EVs and provision of services for mobility in 2025. The establishment of the new company and the start of the business are subject to relevant regulatory approvals. Right. And we've already seen where we've gone with that. Japan is already there. The United States isn't. You have all these references. I'm not going to get into that, but I want to jump into this next part. And basically, here's the new report, straight from Binance. Funny how it's referenced from Binance, especially Binance Japan, right? So, reported on October 2nd, 2023, only 4 days ago, because some of you guys are like, stop referencing the old stuff. Well, you know what? Guess what? I do that for you to have a broader idea of how we tie this all in together. Japanese automobile giant Honda now accepts Bitcoin and Ethereum as payment methods. Interesting. You see this here, rapidly evolving cryptocurrency landscape. Honda, the renowned Japanese automobile giant, entered, of course, in a significant partnership with blockchain payment system FCF Pay. This partnership is set to revolutionize the way customers purchase Honda's products by allowing them to use digital currency in place of traditional fiat currencies. Again, at the beginning of the show, we talked all about this, even though it was in the JASMY segment. FCF Pay, a leading blockchain payment system, has embraced major cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, and even Ripple's XRP, and meme coins, even Shiba Inu, Dogecoin, Pepe, for crying out loud. That's crazy. And more visionary step taken by Honda, not only reshaping the consumer experience, but also pushing Japan to the forefront in the Web3 industry. So my point is this: they're open to other ones, other alts, right? You already understand the connection when it comes to JASMY, because you want to know something, you got to keep in mind the personal data locker. You got to keep in mind the connection to IoT and autonomous vehicles and everything that we literally outlined. So again, this report comes from Binance, but it goes on to also mention that, the key thing is Japan's commitment to Web3 innovation, like I said, has been further highlighted by the ruling Liberal Democratic Party's Web3 project team. This project team gets it. Which recently released, of course, a white paper featuring proposals aimed at expanding the country's Web3 industry. So if you're expanding and you have proposals and you are going to expand, and this is a recent report, then isn't JASMY literally at the forefront for IoT and all these smart technologies? This move underscores Japan's determination to remain at the cutting edge of technological advancements. Okay, so for some of you guys are like, well, why did they mention Pepe? The point is this: they're accepting of some of these things, even the ones that are jokes and technological advancements. JASMY is all over Web3 and the whole thing of the AI and IoT, and especially cutting edge technological advancements. And they already have that connect, that plug with Toyota, right? And then also, especially with Sony. So, this thing here, and I'm not going to get to the very bottom of this. We do know, like it says, it's not the first instance of a Japanese automobile company embracing crypto. And back to SBI. Remember how we talked about SBI earlier? SBI Motor, another prominent player in the industry, had previously opened its doors to, of course, Bitcoin as a means of payment. Additionally, the electronic vehicle titan Tesla made waves. We know about this in regards to Bitcoin and so on. But what about taking it to the next step? Right? That's the bottom line. Now, getting more into it, and that, thank you to Darius Magruder for this particular link. I at least want to give him credit. I'm going to get back to my notes from Mentalogware. I know it seems like quite a bit, but it's good stuff. You have to keep in mind that, yes, let's remember one interesting fact of how this comes into fruition by 2025. And that basically is Sony and Honda, of course, that announced this recent joint venture to produce these electronic vehicles. The headquarters, for one, and listen to this, of this joint venture Sony Honda Mobility will be based in Tokyo. The production of the EVs will take place at one of Honda's factories in even the United States. Pre-orders for the EVs will begin in the first half of 2025, with U.S. deliveries starting in spring of 2026. Japanese orders will be fulfilled later that year. I'm going to play this video for you. There's a couple of good things to get into. And I know this is a lot. I know we have some extended coverage tonight. But this is only a minute and a half. And this was produced 11 months ago, straight from Sony Honda Mobility. Again, think about JASMY. Think about that Sony connection, obviously. And there's a quote here. It says, people move through the pursuit of innovation with diverse inspirations. Our purpose is to move people with the joy of new mobility. I'm going to go ahead and play this. Again, if you appreciate the coverage, please smash that like. And let's get into it. Here we go.
Someone had the urge to go beyond the horizon. Someone had the courage to cross the ocean. People have never stood still. Movement is our instinct, our impulse, our desire. Now we want people to enjoy a new kind of mobility. Mobility that leads to emotions not yet known, to a society not yet seen. Through inspired connections between technology and the senses, we give mobility a new set of emotions and awaken your instinct. The horizon lies within. Find yours. Move people through the pursuit of innovation with diverse inspirations.
All right, Sony Honda Mobility. Think about that for a second. Think about it really hard, and if anything, it's not that hard to really think about when you really connect the dots here. Realize the bigger picture. Remember the part towards the end of the video? It literally talks about towards a bigger, better society. Society 5.0, the end goal, right? All right. There's a couple more videos to wrap it up. I know this is quite the deep dive, but I want you to understand how this is all connected. I mean, the BUFFETT connection of what we tie some things into, and drawing into, like, for instance, with JASMY and so on. I mean, it's crazy stuff. So let's get into this. This is a Fila. It's a concept movie, of course. Talks about mobility. All right. So let me see if this is on the screen. It is. Yeah. I know I'm out of the frame, but that doesn't matter. Talks about mobility that people can feel as an intelligent entity, mobility that people can feel, society through new technology, basically, right? Like, what the heck is all this stuff about, right? So we're going to go ahead and play this as well. This is only 2 minutes. This is another really good one to pound it home a little bit more. Here we go. Again, Sony built on mobility. That's the bottom line. All right, we're going to kick it back to what we have in here because there's still more. I mean, you're probably wondering, like, you know, like what's the main highlight here? And I definitely have that for you. So this is going to be chopped up in a few different sections. There's an intro. It's going to talk a little bit about this concept, and we'll see the other part when we get to. A little bit about Sony, and of course a little bit about the PlayStation. Now there's a thing called Sony's. It's a Sony car, and some people are saying it actually could be pretty darn good. Here's your key takeaway. Okay, if you're wondering about all this, so we obviously know about JASMY and the Sony connection. No kidding, right? Former Sony executives. It's a big, big deal. And those Sony executives talking to other Sony executives. How do we know that? Soramitsu, for crying out loud. And Soramitsu, what standard are they connected with? Believe it or not, ISO TC307, the quant network standard. So we know that these guys talk to each other. And we talk about scalability. JASMY is trying to go to this layer 2 for scalability, right? We talked about centrality in the past. But, you know, again, you got to understand everything tied into all this. So this is not a nothing burger. The way I look at it is, like it says, Sony's car could actually be very, very good. This is referenced back in February of 2022. But the key takeaway here is everything was presented in regards to, you know, what you recently saw, you know, for the notes. And just to double check, we were talking about Sony and Honda, right? You know, again, we talked about, JASMY with Toyota. We understand that with Toyota, JASMY had a subsidiary connection to Toyota. So now enter in Sony and Honda. So I'm going to go ahead and just get into some of the key areas of this. Let me just kind of pull this up for a second. Yeah, here it is. And yep, let's just go ahead and play this. I think it's right at the beginning. Yep, it is. So here we go.
For the last decade, Tesla has had a firm grasp on the EV market, offering vehicles with giant screens, semi-autonomous driving, and a 300-plus mile range. Several companies have begun to fight back with EV offerings of their own. This includes legacy brands like Porsche, Mercedes-Benz, and Ford. Even brand new companies like Rivian and Lucid have joined the battle to give Tesla a run for their money. However, there is a surprise brand that recently announced they're beginning to develop electric cars. I'm not talking about Apple. The company I'm talking about is Sony. Yes, the same company that builds PlayStation 5s and TVs wants to make electric cars. Today, we're going to talk about how Sony is planning to separate themselves from the competition. What kind of infrastructure do they have in place for their plan to work? And most importantly, we're going to see if they're in over their heads. This video is not for Xbox fans. If you modeled your entire personality after Daxter when you were 11 years old, this video is for you. Everyone knows Sony as the massive technology company that produces a wide range of consumer and professional electronics. While they've been involved in the car industry for years, offering sound systems and screens both in new cars as well as in the aftermarket, they are not one of the first brands you think of when you talk about cars. So it was understandable that everyone raised their eyebrows when Sony said they wanted to make an electric car. Could you imagine the reaction if JBL or Bang & Olufsen came out and said they wanted to make an EV? Probably not. However, Sony has taken a few steps in the right direction in hopes that the industry will take them more seriously. Back in 2020, Sony unveiled the Vision S01 concept at CES, or the Consumer Electronics Show. It was a small electric car with a similar profile to a Tesla Model 3. At the time, journalists and EV enthusiasts were doubtful about Sony legitimately making the leap manufacturing EVs for the consumer. Electrek, a news site with a focus on EVs, said, quote, "We've seen our fair share of EV concepts over the years. Some of them seemed serious and some of them didn't. This one may lean a bit towards the latter category." To be fair, Sony made it clear that the Vision S01 concept was merely a case study and they didn't plan on entering the automotive space. Electrik's take was pretty spot on in 2020. At CES 2022, Sony was back, and this time they unveiled the Vision S02 concept. It's a small crossover SUV that looks similar to the Tesla Model Y. And what was even more surprising is that it looked close to production ready. Sony emphasized safety as their top priority as they developed mobility technology. With over 40 sensors inside and out, the Vision S O2 concept could monitor safety as well as achieve up to level 2 self-driving operation.
Are you not paying attention to that concept? The sensors. Again, I don't know if anybody really, I don't know, some of you guys do listen to the material and some maybe it just flies over your head. So Yoshida, that Dreamforce connection, you may think it's like that's a nothing burger. That is not a nothing burger at all. So you already have products that have already been made in regards to sensors. Again, take some of the proven things that we've shared and apply it to what you see in regards to this. And then take the whole thing of Sony, and now obviously this whole thing of, what is it, Sony and Honda, for crying out loud? Let me just double check my notes. Yeah, Sony and Honda, a joint venture to produce electric vehicles. It's just like, and then when is this all going to happen? According to the notes, this joint venture, Sony Honda Mobility, will be based in Tokyo. The production of the EVs will take place, I know I read this before, but just in case you just forgot, take place at the Honda's factories in the United States. Pre-orders, right? First half 2025, deliveries spring 2026. It kind of makes you wonder, you know, some people say, and I'll play this again, you know, the other good stuff. Some people say, I don't understand where JASMY gets these KPI targets of $17 by 2026. Say what you want. Could this be the aha moment to further, you know, solidify that basic debate? I think it's possible. I'm not a fortune teller. It may seem like that's kind of fortune telling. It's not. It's just, I bring you guys the material. You know, make your informed decision on whatever the heck you want to do. It's never financial advice. But you know what? I was digging deeper and I said to myself, like, some of this stuff kind of now makes sense when you look into it a little bit more deeper, because we are all, I think, on board for JASMY holders that we hit a minimum of $1, you know, I guess you could say by 2025, maybe to 2026. Like, for the most part, the general consensus, a lot of people feel that. Of course, the people are like, JASMY scam. Never will see it that way. But the key thing is understanding the bigger picture. Now, this whole thing of 2026 is a big, big deal. And it's just like, where some people say, where does Hara pull all this stuff from? Okay, Ando, right? Former Sony executive. Kazumasa Sato, former Sony executive. Yoshida, again, part of the whole bigger mix of Sony. How about Merida, right? Engineering side of things. You know, like Menalogwar said, like, if you know this, you know that when it comes to the Internet of Things, in Japan, people who are involved in the Internet of Things literally bow to to Merida. Like, he's highly revered. How about all the patents that were created? Now, that'll be part 3. I'm not going to get into tonight because tonight's real deep, extended coverage. Okay. But I want you to understand, if you've taken the time to do your research, and that's why these shows are called Do Your Own Research with Max. Okay. Whether I have 30 people here or 300 people here, I want you to understand the bigger picture of things. Not just, you know, some people criticize me, you know, who are you? You some kind of authority? I never said I was an authority. But maybe I just read a little bit more compared to the average person. And you know what? Is that such a bad thing? No, it's not. I'm going to play a little bit more in regards to this, and I think it's worth paying attention to. So I think I made the point on that little intro. I'm going to fast forward it now to a little bit more about Sony, okay? So let's get into this. The commercial line. All right. Okay, so here's the part about Sony, once again, a little bit different aspect, because I don't want to play the whole thing. It's too long a video to play, right? Let's just get to the good stuff. So I'm going to jump back to this. Let's share this. This is good stuff. If you're a JASMY holder and you like this coverage, this is a real treat for you. Here we go.
While Sony has made 2 concepts and has reported having $16 billion cash on hand, we can see that money is not the only factor necessary to successfully get an EV off the ground. Currently, Sony has a successful partnership with an industry titan like Magna International, and this might be the differentiating factor that separates them from other failed startups. Since they're only in the initial stages of the process, Sony knows they're underdogs in the EV space. However, Sony knows this is not the first time they've been in this position before. Back in the early 90s, the industry leaders in gaming consoles were Nintendo and Sega. Sony was keen on entering the market and approached Nintendo to help create a new console. As a CD-ROM add-on to the Super Nintendo, it was going to be called the Nintendo PlayStation. However, even after over 200 prototypes were built, the system was never released and Nintendo backed out of the partnership. However, Nintendo didn't just back out of the deal with Sony, but negotiated a side deal with Sony's lead competitor, Philips. Obviously upset by the betrayal, Sony took the technology they developed for a CD-based video game console and announced that they were developing the PlayStation at the 1991 CES. Then, in CES 1995, Olaf Olafsson of Sony Electronic Publishing explained the features of the new PlayStation and ended the speech saying that it would cost $299. This undercut the Sega Saturn's price by $100 and caught Sega with their pants down. After the PlayStation was released in the United States in 1995, it sold more consoles in 2 days than the Saturn did in the previous 5 months. The Saturn was shunned and several stores pulled the console from their shelves due to the fact it was more difficult to sell the more expensive console. This was a devastating loss to Sega since they invested heavily into the Saturn's success. Even Nintendo, who released the Nintendo 64, was overshadowed when Sony introduced the Final Fantasy franchise to PlayStation, which further drove PlayStation sales. This weakened Nintendo's market share and pushed Sega even further out of the market. It wasn't too long before the console wars between Nintendo and Sega ended when they both realized they were facing a new rival in Sony. And as of 2021, Sony is the biggest console manufacturer in the world. Doubters can say whatever they want, but the reality is Sony not only has experience being an underdog in a brand new industry, but knows what it takes to come out on top. Granted, cars are a little more complicated than consoles. Presently, they've already built 2 concept cars and have a manufacturing infrastructure in place. While it is not impossible for Sony to have the same fate as a company like Nikola or the companies we mentioned earlier, they have taken the proper steps to have a chance at success. With $16 billion of cash on hand and what looks like a strong partnership with Magna International, they have the potential to take over the EV space the same way they took over the gaming industry so many years ago. Only time will tell how far they can go.
The point is, all this innovation and the connections, right? You may think it's bogus about a Sony car, but that's not. You can clearly see, especially when you show Tesla a while back, the sensors and so on. Again, that Sony connection, I think, is so big for obviously JASMY because it connects them to things that it's just going to kind of help them give them a leg up, right? I'll pull up the notes on this real quick, and it's crazy when you tie in some of this, some of these things. I mean, again, spring 2026, we're supposed to have those deliveries, and then the orders in the first half of 2025 in regards to Sony. So it's so much more than a concept car, right? Sony Honda Mobility, the joint venture. I mean, it really makes me scratch my head about the KPI target of $17 for JASMY. Activating IoT is one thing, and then activating other things is another. So your key takeaway basically should be this, okay? And that is, let me just double check my settings real quick. Yeah, I'm good. What we mentioned earlier for this conference, and just kind of back and review real quick, 13th International Conference on the Internet of Things, November 7th through the 10th. It's basically like the Super Bowl, of blockchain conferences, or what do you want to call it in regards to, as far as what JASMY should look at it, because it's an international conference on the Internet of Things. right? Not just exclusive, inviting the industry players from Japan or Southeast Asia and so on. Nope, not that. International, everywhere. Everybody's going to be at this. So this is the time for them to really shine and the time for them to talk to some of these other guys that maybe they already have, right? Maybe it's already done deals. But again, think outside the box. I think this is a big, big deal. And of course, what we showed at the very beginning of the outline, this new trend line, where we talked about the head and shoulders, the breakout thing is getting bullish. So say what you want. We'll see what happens. I mean, obviously crazy things can happen in the market, right? You know that, but I don't know. There you go, right? I'll stop talking your head off. And thank you once again to Menno Laguar, who helped out with this deep dive once again for JASMY.